In August 2007, a quiet university town in northern Italy became the center of one of the country's most controversial murder investigations. A 26-year-old woman named Chiara Poggi was found brutally killed inside her family home in the town of Garlasco. At first, investigators believed they had their man. Her boyfriend, Alberto Stasi, would eventually be convicted after years of legal battles, but the case never truly went away. Because years later, another name started appearing in headlines, a man named Andrea Sempio, a friend of Chiara's younger brother, a man who had originally been questioned and then cleared. Someone prosecutors would later circle back to almost a decade after the murder. And now, nearly 20 years later, the case is once again making international news. Tonight, we're looking at the murder of Chiara Poggi, the conviction of Alberto Stasi, and the mystery surrounding Andrea Sempio, the man at the center of one of Italy's most debated cold case twists. The story begins on August 13, 2007, in the small town of Garlasco, near Milan in Italy. Chiara Poggi was described as intelligent, quiet, and well-liked. She had recently graduated in economics and was working while planning her future with her boyfriend, Alberto Stasi. That morning, Chiara was alone at home, while her parents and younger brother were away on holiday. At around 1:50 p.m., emergency services received a horrifying call from Alberto Stasi. He claimed he had gone to Chiara's house after being unable to reach her by phone. When he entered, he said he discovered blood inside the home and found Chiara dead near the bottom of the stairs. Police arrived to a gruesome scene. Chiara had suffered multiple blows to the head from a blunt object. Investigators believed the killer attacked her inside the house before dragging or leaving her body near the staircase leading to the basement. But almost immediately, questions emerged about Alberto Stasi himself. His behavior struck some investigators as strange. According to reports, he allegedly avoided stepping in blood while moving through the house. Some thought his reactions seemed detached. Others argued people respond unpredictably to trauma. At first, there wasn't enough evidence to charge him, but the investigation quickly focused heavily on the boyfriend. The case against Alberto Stasi became one of Italy's biggest media stories. Investigators believed there were inconsistencies in his account of the day. They examined computer activity, timelines, shoe prints, and forensic evidence from the crime scene. One major point involved the footwear impressions found in the house. Prosecutors argued certain prints were compatible with shoes linked to Stasi. Defense experts challenged those conclusions repeatedly. Another issue was timing. Authorities questioned whether Alberto really discovered the body when he claimed, or whether he had staged parts of the scene. The case became incredibly complicated because Italy's legal system allows multiple levels of appeal and retrial. At one stage, Stasi was acquitted, then later convicted, then acquitted again, then retried. Finally, in 2015, Italy's highest court confirmed a conviction for murder, and Alberto Stasi was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Even then, debate never stopped. Some people believed the evidence was enough. Others argued the case was built almost entirely on circumstantial evidence and investigative assumptions. And that's where Andrea Sempio enters the story. Andrea Sempio was not a random stranger. He was a friend of Chiara's younger brother, Marco. He had visited the Poggi home before. Investigators already knew who he was back in 2007. But during the original investigation, he wasn't considered a major suspect. Years passed. Then in 2016, Italian prosecutors reopened attention on Sempio after new defense investigations connected him to controversial DNA findings. According to reports, traces of male DNA had been found under Chiara Poggi's fingernails during the original autopsy. At the time, testing technology was more limited. Years later, lawyers connected to Alberto Stasi's defense argued the DNA profile could be compatible with Andrea Sempio. Suddenly, the entire case exploded back into public discussion. Had police convicted the wrong man? Or were desperate defense teams trying to create doubt years after the fact? Italian media became obsessed with the possibility. The DNA evidence is where this case becomes extremely complicated. Some experts argued the material under Chiara's fingernails was too weak, incomplete, or contaminated to be considered reliable. Others believed it was potentially critical evidence. Prosecutors began examining Andrea Sempio's movements around the time of the murder. Investigators reportedly looked into old phone records and receipts. There were discussions about whether his alibi fully checked out. At one point, prosecutors considered whether Sempio's DNA profile aligned strongly enough with the trace evidence to justify charges, but the situation became controversial almost immediately. Defense lawyers for Sempio argued the evidence was scientifically unreliable. Some forensic experts said the DNA quantity was far too small for definitive conclusions. In 2017, the investigation against Andrea Sempio was officially dropped. A judge ruled there was insufficient evidence to proceed. For most cases, that would have been the end. But not this one. Despite the investigation being closed, the Garlasco murder case continued haunting Italian media. True crime programs revisited it constantly. Online forums debated every forensic detail. People argued endlessly over whether Alberto Stasi was guilty. Then, new forensic reviews and renewed public interest led investigators to revisit aspects of the case again years later. Recent reports in 2025 and 2026 revealed renewed examination of forensic evidence connected to Andrea Sempio. Italian prosecutors reportedly explored fresh DNA analysis and modern testing methods unavailable during the original investigation. This reignited debate all over again. Could newer forensic technology finally answer the questions left unresolved for nearly 2 decades? Or would it simply create more confusion? One major issue is that many pieces of evidence are now incredibly old. Memories fade. Crime scene handling standards from 2007 are heavily criticized today, and years of media coverage have complicated public perception. At this stage, the case has almost become larger than the original crime itself. One reason this case fascinates people is because almost nobody seems fully satisfied by the official conclusions. Supporters of Alberto Stasi point to lack of direct eyewitnesses, questions over forensic handling, the later DNA controversies, the repeated appeals and reversals. Meanwhile, others believe Stasi's behavior was suspicious. The circumstantial evidence collectively pointed strongly toward guilt. Later theories involving Andrea Sempio were exaggerated by defense lawyers. Then there's another group entirely, people who think both investigations were flawed. In Italy, the case became symbolic of larger debates surrounding forensic reliability, media influence, prosecutorial pressure, and public obsession with high-profile crimes. The longer the mystery continues, the harder it becomes to separate fact from speculation. Italian true crime coverage around this case has been relentless. Television debates dissected tiny details for years. Newspapers published endless theories. Experts argued publicly about blood patterns, timelines, and DNA contamination. Andrea Sempio himself has repeatedly denied involvement. Imagine being questioned publicly in connection with a murder nearly 20 years after the crime, despite previously being cleared. At the same time, Alberto Stasi remains convicted of Chiara Poggi's murder, and Chiara's family have spent years caught in the middle of legal battles, media attention, and public speculation. That's something often forgotten in huge true crime stories. Behind all the theories are real people who lost someone. The murder of Chiara Poggi remains one of modern Italy's most controversial criminal cases. Officially, Alberto Stasi was convicted and sentenced for the crime. But the later emergence of Andrea Sempio created doubts that still haven't disappeared. Nearly 20 years later, people are still asking the same questions. Did investigators get it right the first time? Did evolving DNA technology uncover something important? Or has the case become trapped in an endless cycle of speculation and media attention? Whatever the answer is, the Garlasco murder case continues to stand as one of Europe's most debated unsolved controversies, even after a conviction. And for many people watching from the outside, it still doesn't feel truly resolved. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe the conviction against Alberto Stasi was correct? Or do you think the later DNA evidence changed everything? And if you want more true crime breakdowns covering lesser-known but controversial cases from around the world, subscribe and turn notifications on. Thanks for watching.